Good morning or good afternoon, everybody. This is Zach Parnell. I'm Vice President of ITI and just want to welcome you all to the webinar this month. This is our June webinar. If you've been on these before, welcome back. If you're new, we'll be filling you in on how these work. And this month we're really excited to have on two companies represented by guest speakers in addition to ITI. Darcie DaSilva is with Field ID, and Sanders, Roth, and Kelly Morris are both with Holland 1916. And we also want to welcome our very own Alex Farris. He's with ITI. He wears more hats in our company than most people would brag about. So, and of course, our president Mike Parnell is on the line. The discussion today, and I'll go through kind of how this all works, like I mentioned. But the discussion today is titled Automation, the Standard in Equipment Inspection and Asset Management. So let me give you a little bit of background on ITI and then go into what we're going to talk about today and how you'll be able to access these materials as well after the presentation. If you're not familiar with ITI, we are a training company, we're an education company. That's why we're doing free training webinars every month. You know, we're all about spreading the word with anything regarding cranes, rigging, and lifting. We pretty much cover the whole Western Hemisphere with organizations and companies in Canada, U.S., and Brazil, and we have capabilities to reach into Asia Pacific and Africa, Middle East, and Europe as well. So if it's about education and crane and rigging, we're into it. As you all know, there's folks from all sorts of industries on the line here. Wherever loads are moved and rigging gear is utilized, that's where the training occurs. So we cover tons of different industries, and we have a multitude of customers from every industry. It's really nice to see several of the folks on here from, I noticed there were some registrants from KBR and Siemens and Shell, I believe. I didn't look at the whole registration list, but welcome everybody if you're familiar with us and a customer, and if you're not. I want to let you all know that this webinar is obviously, well, today, but there's future presentations in July and August. Next month, we have a presentation called 10 Points of Lift Plan Development. And I realize that a lot of the people on the line here today are equipment managers or rigging superintendents. That next month's webinar will be about lift planning, and so we expect a lot of people from rigging engineer teams and crane and rigging superintendents as well. Also, August is along the same lines. We are inviting Fluor, a couple of gentlemen from the rigging engineer team from Fluor, and they're going to be speaking with Mike about a function of a rigging engineer. So you don't want to miss those two. They're going to be really great. And there's as well, we have webinar training courses on our website that you can attend that are they dial into really ITI's curriculum. And speaking of the company a little bit, Mike Parnell is our president, like I mentioned. He's really our technical director. He's built all of our training curriculum, ASME B30 vice chairman, and something he probably won't touch on today, but next month he's the P30 chairman, which is the new lift planning standard that the ASME is rolling out either at the end of this year or the beginning of next year. It'll be, I think, released. So what Alex and Mike are actually going to talk a little bit first about best practices and how ITI manages its assets. And we conduct rigging inspection class. It's one of our biggest courses we have, and Alex will touch on how we utilize it there. But then we're going to turn it over to Kelly and Sanders to go over the RFID technology, and then Darcie will be going over basically the cloud computing model and what Field ID does for asset management. So I'm really excited for all of you to be here. And Alex, I'm going to turn it over to you guys so you can take the screen and take it away.
Okay. Hi everybody, I'm Alex Farris. I work here at ITI, and part of what I do is maintain our assets and inventory on the rigging standpoint.
This is Mike Parnell, and I'm joining you too. And this is we've been able to integrate the RFID system within the Woodland, Washington operation and also in Memphis, but there really are three basic areas: inventory, inspection, inspections, and then record keeping. And Alex is going to walk through a little bit on how we've integrated the RFID and what benefits there are to our organization. So let me turn it over to Alex right here, and for our applications here, I'm going to ask him to talk you quickly through that, and then we'll get into the balance of the presentation by some of the providers for the services.
Okay, so ITI, we have four kind of segregations of equipment and assets, and as you can see on the screen, we start here with rigging, cranes, rolling stock, and general equipment. Starting here with rigging, here we have our chain slings, just kind of a small portion of what we have, but as you can see there hanging on the chain sling tag is an RFID teardrop style chip. And along next to that is the Field ID application that we use to go ahead and manage this particular asset for chain slings. Following the chain slings, we have our cranes. These are three types of cranes that we have in our facility. In the center there, you'll see the Field ID application there, where we can manage our cranes in the standpoint of excuse me. And manage. So if you look kind of in the picture there, we can do historical data, general maintenance, driver's cabin station, carrier and power plant, and so on. And next to that, through the inspection, we can check mark if it's satisfactory, unsatisfactory, and so on. And there in the far corner, Field ID has a variety of ways that you can track these assets. And in this case, we just have a barcode scanner, and there's a simple number there in the corner that we can enter into the Field ID and go straight to that piece of equipment. Our next grouping of assets are rolling stock. You can see that we have a material handler, rough terrain forklift, and also a forklift there in the corner. And again, there on your right-hand side, we can, there, and we also manage this asset with just a simple barcode there, and it can be placed in the cab, kind of out of the way so it doesn't get damaged. There's a lot of different ways that we can tag these machines. So again, there on the Field ID app, we can look at chassis, mast and carriage, operation stations, forks. I mean, the inspection criteria on these is endless. I mean, you can look at just about every point on the piece of equipment and go through it easily, making sure it's satisfactory and recording it in the cloud. Following that, and our last kind of grouping is general equipment. You can see that as a training company, we have very wide selection of tools and assets that our students can use. And all these, we've got air casters, roller casters, chain falls. You guys can see there's airbags and just all sorts of items that we use at a training facility. And so Field ID makes it easy for us to be able to track all the repairs and the type of equipment it is and the age of it and where it's purchased. And if you go to the next slide here. So, and also Field ID makes it easiest for us. We have 2 site locations, one here in Woodland, Washington, and one in Memphis, Tennessee. And so this makes, Field ID makes it easy so we can manage all these assets on one cloud base. And not only myself, but students and other instructors can access these assets on either Memphis or Woodland over the internet. Field ID we also use to conduct inspections annually, periodically, and daily. This goes for chain slings, web slings, shackles, chain falls, anything that we need to have inspected and anything that we need to keep up to code or keep up to date or follow the rules and regulations. We use Field ID to do this. So on this next slide here, this kind of just gives us a viewing of our Field ID. You can see here on the right, telescoping boom crane. We've completed, it says here, we've completed the inspection, and it says, okay, pass on a certain day that we did the inspection. And if you look down here,
so we have historical starting in August of 11, and then April of 12 needed a repair or an inspection.
Right.
And then it's progressive based on the dates and times, right?
Sure, exactly. And if you look, and next to that, you can see, okay, on September 25th of 2012 on our crane, we repaired the serpentine belt, pressure sending unit, and replaced small wiring connector in the alternator. So it makes it really nice to be able to go back and see, okay, what have we done to our specific asset? Okay, and so moving on to rigging and modification here, we have a manual chain hoist, and we had some issues with it, and we sent it out to be repaired. And if you look here on the right-hand side, it has the last certification and the company that we had certified, and also it'll tell you what we have done to it. Another nice thing about Field ID is when we get those certifications back from the repair shop, we can actually upload them PDF format up into the Field ID system, and we can then bring that up for reference if we need to. So another kind of a cool part Field ID and what we do here at ITI is we like to let the students be able to use this application. And so how we've done this is Field ID has put an application on an iPad, and we then give the iPads to the students and also a scanner for the RFID chip. And they go ahead and they scan the asset into the iPad, and they go ahead and do the inspection. It's really a great hands-on tool, and it's great hands-on tool, and everybody's really interactive. And Mike, if you wanted to elaborate on this.
Yeah, the tracking is really good, and it really helps set the pace for those when they go home. There may be 25 companies involved in a rigging inspection course, and there may be 5 to 10 of them that have some type of long-term tracking electronically, but all of a sudden with RFID and this technology, they're really they're seeing a much faster and long-term retention of records, repair information, maintenance, who's it performed by, all the proof testing information. It becomes a much better supported process than just a paper file that can get displaced over time or lost and not as easily retrievable. So here's a, Alex has got this set up that the tool is able to communicate with the iPad.
So this is kind of a picture of the functionality of Field ID. This is our iPad 2, and what you're looking at is an RFID reader, and the chip is scanned, and Field ID pops this up. You can see there's a picture of the asset, and looking down there's selection for wear, selection for stretch, selection for welds, damage, and you can also add notes and comments at the bottom of the asset there. So, student education interaction. So Field ID, I mean, we're really bringing kind of a new efficient way to inspection and into our inspection courses. A lot of guys have pushed paper and done their inspections on the traditional paper form, and this way on Field ID we can track everything, makes it kind of a fun and interactive way for the students, and I really feel like the students, they take a value of asset inspection. I mean,
yep.
I think it's just it's a great way to start doing these inventories.
Well, besides the participation by new learners for this, it's really a savings for the employer to be able to use and employ the system. It's more efficient, and also it's long-term retention, I think, is a huge value that as you change employees out, it won't matter which employee is involved over time in 2013, 2014, 2018. The record keeping and history for repairs, maintenance, and inspections is always contained. So it can be generationally passed off to other folks, and I think it's a huge benefit for the owner of the equipment and the assets to be able to have that at will, at fingertips. So let's go on. Zach, if you'll pass the screen back over to our other presenters, then we can keep going forward with the program. I think Kelly Morris is up next.
Yeah, and what I'll do, everybody, I want to get everyone involved really quick with a poll question. So you'll see that coming up right now. And it's just trying to understand where everyone's at currently on their asset management. So go ahead and answer that poll question. It basically is asking, what sort of system does your organization currently use to manage your inventory, inspection, and maintenance records? You know, are you using paper, Excel, local database, or a cloud-based system? So I'm going to keep that open for a few seconds here, Kelly, and then I'll make Kelly presenter and continue on. So Holland, everyone, Holland and Field ID will be getting into how this all works now that you have a background of how ITI utilizes it. And they'll probably touch on about 90% more of the value propositions that are available and why employers are really using this today. So they got about 50% voted, so I'm gonna leave it open another 3 seconds here, and I'll show the poll results. All right. So basically, looks like about wow, pretty diverse split here. I mean, almost a quarter of everybody is in one category or another. So we'll have those records later on afterwards. But Kelly, why don't we hand it over to you, and let's get into what you have to go over on the Holland side.
Thanks, Zach. Appreciate it.
I think you made me the presenter, Zach.
Oh, there we go. Sorry about that.
There we go. Not a problem. Thanks, Mike and Alex. Appreciate it, and everybody else at ITI for having Holland with you guys today. My name is Kelly Morris. I'm the Director of Business Development at Holland Nameplate. A little bit about Holland 1916, which is Holland Nameplate and Holland RFID's parent company. We were actually founded in 1916 as an engraving company, and since then we've grown into 5 business segments. We've got Holland Interface Solutions, Holland Integrated Metal Solutions, Osprey, and then Holland Nameplate and Holland RFID. All 5 of our operations are located here in Kansas City, Missouri. And we actually got into the nameplate business during World War II when we manufactured nameplates for industrial identification purposes for the U.S. government. Since then, we have been able to serve industries in oil and gas, flow control, material handling, aerospace, transportation, lifting and rigging, and construction and food and beverage. And Holland nameplate and RFID work extremely close together to provide identification tags as well as safety solutions and asset management. So most of you are probably familiar with the tags on slings. You need an identification tag per different OSHA requirements. You can find all those different requirements at the link that I have listed there at OSHA.gov. And reasons for these identification tags, one is safety. You want all your workers and employees to know the limits, warnings, and restrictions of the slings that you guys are using in lifting and rigging. You also want to be able to keep business moving. As most of you are probably familiar with, if your sling is not tagged, it's a sling that can't be in use, and that means you guys you're losing business. So ITI, they're really familiar with safety, and Holland can help provide some tools to ensure that your business keeps moving and make sure that all your employees are safe. So a question that we get all the time from clients, the number one question is, what type of tag do I need? This is a pretty important question. You know, when you're putting a tag on a sling, you want to make sure that it's the right type of tag for the sling application, as well as that it's providing all the required information. What's the application of the tag? We want to look at things like the environment. Is it going to be in a harsh outdoor situation? Is it going to be in just a regular outdoor situation? Are you needing a tag just as your sling leaves the shop, but not really in need of something that's going to last a long time? Is it something that you just want to brand your company on? Another key component of that is maintenance. Is it something that is a repair tag? Is a tag that multiple employees or workers are going to touch? And how are you going to apply that tag so that it doesn't come off? Holland has been able to create a couple different solutions for that we'll get into a little bit later. And your second component of this piece is required information that you're going to need to put on the tag. Some of the most common information that will be put on lifting and rigging tags is information about the basket, the load, the vertical, and the choker. Again, that information is going to change depending on what type of sling you're using and what type of information is required for the use of that sling. Another big question that we get from clients is, am I required to put on a warning label? Here at Holland, we don't have a standard warning that we apply across the board to different industries. We always suggest that you get with your in-house legal team and come up with a warning that you want to apply to those tags that makes sure it covers all your bases and the industry that it's going to be used in. There is quite a variety of tag options that you can select from. You can go with one end of the spectrum, a low-cost tag solution. That's typically going to be an aluminum tag with screen print graphics on it. These tags are going to be used in not harsh environments for simple branding purposes or an identification on a sling that's just leaving a shop. On the opposite end of that spectrum, if you need a durable or heavy-duty tag, you need it to last a long time, you're going to look for a stainless steel option with etched graphics. Those are going to be good in harsh environments. Again, additional branding purposes, and to ensure that the safety information on the tag does not come off. Typical identification tags they're going to be one or two-sided, and Holland has created a buyer's guide to help you determine what the best solution for you will be. This will go with what environment it is, what your budget is, what information you need to have on that tag. And you can download our buyer's guide at www.hollands1916.com. It'll run through a bunch of different questions that will just help you jumpstart conversations with your tag provider on what's the best solution for you. identification tags that you commonly hear in the industry are going to be sling tags. This is probably the most common name and almost an umbrella name for all the different tags that fall under the sling tag category. But there's several different tags for your slings. You can have a chain tag, which typically has a larger hole so that it can accommodate for the chain sling. Wire rope tag, which commonly has a small hole for the wire rope. Shackle tags, which are going to be in a circular shape and formation. Synthetic slings, which are going to be made out of synthetic material, typically nylon. At Holland1916.com, you can find our wire rope solutions page for additional details on these identification tags. Most of you should be pretty familiar with the tags that are on the slings. This probably isn't anything new to you guys. But as you can see on this next slide, what we have been able to come up with are just some standard products. These are what are most common sold to our customers in lifting and rigging industries. Obviously, it's not the only tags that we can come up with. As a custom manufacturer, we will incorporate any type of information that you need on a tag. We'll put it on there to ensure that you can keep business moving and that you have all the required safety information. There, if you're looking on the right hand of the screen, you'll see our RFID options, which Sanders is going to get into here in a second. We've also created these sling tags with RFID-enabled chips to not only ensure that you have required safety information on there, but you can also track your assets and use that RFID chip for inspection. Additionally, there's some other products to help make your life as fluid and simple as possible. Synthetic sling printer. This would be for anyone who is using synthetic slings. You can buy a printer and print your own tags in-house. This eliminates a lot of waiting or interruptions when you're waiting for a vendor, and you can make on-the-go changes. So if you have customers that need specific information on their synthetic sling, you can do that in-house. Zip ties and cable ties are two products that Holland markets as one of the best ways to attach your tag. They're going to be mini wire rope, and as you can see the picture on the bottom there, they've got an orange cable tie that cinches them together, and that's going to allow your tag to stay on your sling. The last product that Holland nameplate has come up with, obviously, is our RFID tag solution. And I'm going to pass it over to Sanders, who's going to tell you guys a little bit more about how RFID can improve not only your safety, but as well as your asset management and inspection.
Thanks, Kelly. Hi, guys. It's Sanders Roth with Holland 1916 RFID. Taking a look at the attendees list, looks like a lot of attendees were at A-Wharf in Dallas, so welcome back, and I'm glad that everyone's still interested in the application. What I'm going to talk about today is just go into a little bit more detail about RFID, the mechanics behind it, and how it's going to communicate with the software systems such as Field ID. First off, you know, the subject of the webinar is automation, and this is what RFID is really going to do. It's going to allow automation within your organization. And I've tried to make this as 101 as possible, so any questions at the end we'll be happy to answer. So again, RFID is really going to turn any inspiration into reality in terms of streamlining inspection and asset tracking. So what's the goal that we have with RFID? We really want to give your asset a voice. Something with a voice is going to be much more helpful than something that doesn't have a voice. This is going to allow you to be proactive rather than reactive, which is huge when you're dealing with safety and inspections. You certainly don't want to be cleaning up a mess. You want to prevent the mess. Holland 1916 focuses specifically on RFID-related hardware. That allows us to serve a wide range of industries and be subjected with a lot of different difficult problems. And we can take those solutions and integrate them into industries that might not have been thinking outside of the box or that we might have not have came up with on our own. We really foster new technology and innovation. And that really is your benefit in terms of return on investments for technology, increasing safety, again, being proactive, automation, which will free up resources, and then being innovative, where one good idea really always fosters another. So what gives us the right really to talk about RFID? Well, there's a lot of competition in RFID. It's been a booming technology over the last 10 years, especially in these industrial markets. We serve a wide range of markets, which goes back to those interesting challenges. And we've also had some big-name customers who are very excited about the technology, and they've done multiple white papers, multiple return on investment analysis, which we can present to our customers and really tell a story as opposed to try to do a sales pitch about this is a great technology, it does all these great things. But really, you guys want to see results, you want to see proof, so that's what we're all about. Right now, we have close to 100 different products because we've done so much specific customization. We have several hundred returning RFID customers, and then Holland nameplate has several thousand customers. So if you're not a customer already, hopefully you soon will be one day, and we're looking forward to that point. So what is RFID? And this is the most common question, and everyone will tell you a different answer. But really what it is it's the use of radio frequency to identify something, right? RFID, radio frequency identification. So what that does, again, is it gives that asset a voice. And your RFID system is going to be composed of three components. It's going to have an antenna, which emits a signal, and that's referred to kind of as the scanner. It's going to have a tag that returns that radio signal, and then it's going to have a reader that can decode the difference in signals and come up with a unique identification number, which will identify that asset into a software program. Now, you can also write information to the memory side of a tag, and that memory can be anywhere from 1,000 bits to 8,000 bits currently, which is available. And that bit is a 0 and 1. And when you break that down into different encoding practices, you can get different information out of those zeros and ones. You've probably used radio frequency today several times when you unlocked your car with your keychain or used your cell phone, and you perhaps even used RFID today when you entered the office for anything that used to identify who you are and give you the rights to enter that doorway. So you probably utilize RFID a lot during your average day, but you don't know it. It's very big in retail. It's very large in library, automotive, and a lot of different industries are adopting it really rapidly, such as the lifting and rigging, oil and gas, and aerospace. So if you didn't like class, hopefully I'm a little bit better than your 4th or 5th grade science teacher. So I'll just give you a quick rundown of the background of RFID. So basically, we discovered magnetism in the 600, in 600 BC, and it was really not invented. Radio frequency identification was never invented. It has existed since the beginning of the universe. It's just finding ways to adopt the use of it and figure out how it works exactly. So in the 1600s, we had people that started using compasses, and they were able to, streamline their initiative, right? Whether it's getting from point A to point B, now they're not lost in the woods, and this really started turning the world into a more organized place. From there, we discovered direct current first, and then alternating current. And one day in the 1800s, there was a gentleman who had wrapped a whole bunch of coils and started using alternate current, and he noticed that a light bulb that was laying close to the coil started to light up. And slowly but surely, the scientists got together, and they identified that there's invisible energy created when you pump electricity around a coil, and it also creates magnetic fields. So that was the beginning and birth of identification and electromagnetism. Now, electromagnetism is a term that really adopts to anything from radio frequency to gamma rays. And I have a diagram up on the screen, and you can see that let's hide that bar there. Nobody could tell me that the bar was up there. So we have a diagram here for electromagnetism. And on the left side is radios, and on the right side is gamma rays. So these have different properties in terms of frequency and wavelength. However, they all operate at the speed of light. They're all affected differently by mediums, and they all have different specifications in terms of temperature and application usages. So we're focused on the left side of the screen, which is the least harmful, and that's radio waves, and that's where radio frequency operates from. And going back to magnetism and things like that, the reason that industrial RFID has been so late to develop is because it's difficult to get to work around metal objects because of the magnetic properties of those objects. So over the last 10 or 15 years, commercial RFID developing those industrial applications has allowed us to integrate RFID into metal products and metal assets, and even in saltwater applications, which has really increased the usage for our types of industries. This is just a diagram to show how a magnetic field is generated when you put energy around a coil. Again, this goes back to the light bulb lighting up with the magnetic field and electromagnetic fields. Okay, so real quick, I want to talk on the type of RFID tag we make. There's two primary types of tags. There's active and then there's passive RFID tags. Passive RFID tags are much smaller. They don't have a battery, and they operate off a term called backscatter. Active RFID tags have a battery, a limited lifespan, but they can transmit much more further distances, and they can also be integrated with sensors such as humidity and pressure, shock, vibration, and those things they always have to have energy running through them to monitor those. So at certain times there might be a good reason to use an active tag, whereas again passive is going to have that lifespan and never have to be replaced. So how a passive tag works is reflection, basically, where a reader transmits a signal. The RFID tag is composed of an antenna and a chip. The antenna gathers that energy, powers up the chip, and then it transmits a slightly modified wave back, and the reader will accept that wave, and then again it translates it into useful information. And Field ID is going to talk about how useful that information can be here in a second. The commercial history, I kind of mentioned some of the difficulties of metal and liquids. RF, again, ID, radio frequency identification, was primarily began being used during World War II to identify airplanes as friends or foes. So that was the initial use of using radio frequency to identify something. Here at Holland, we obviously we work with metal, so what better way to make a radio frequency chip extremely durable than encased in a metal carrier. And then going back to some of those magnetic issues with metal is really what's made us the leader in the industry in terms of durable solutions. Walmart really made it popular in the 1990s when they said they were going to require every vendor to use RFID on every box they shipped. Slowly but surely, a lot of venture capitalists started jumping into RFID, which put a lot of money in development. And then Walmart's suppliers said, yeah, well, this sounds great, but are you going to pay us? And of course, Walmart didn't want to do that. So a lot of organizations were met with very thin margins already. They had to use these huge, they had to absorb these huge costs of utilizing the technology. So again, the initiative there was to increase the performance, increase the usage, but drive down costs. And that's what led us to where we are today, where you can actually have a feasible solution using radio frequency identification. So again, we'll get into this more, and I think the software is going to give you guys the best rundown of the real benefit behind radio frequency. Again, Holland is very keen on the best fit application and tag method. There's a lot of different ways that information can be taken into a software system. I'll just run down the list. Of course, saving time and money. If you have a guy out in the field and he writes down a serial number and makes one mistake on a clipboard and then gets back to the office and finds out that serial number doesn't exist, well, then you got an issue and you just wasted several hours. You're going to reduce liability. You're going to have 24/7 access to all your assets. You're going to know what's not inspected. You're going to know who was last inspecting this asset. You're going to have all the custom checklists mobile, ready to be drop and drag, click, check mark, whatever it is, instead of writing or having 18 checkboard or clipboards. There we go, clipboards. Term I'm using. It's funny. I walk into some of our potential customers' facilities and they have 18 different clipboards hanging on the wall for different types of assets or different inspections, whereas they should just be walking around with one mobile device that has all those clipboards loaded onto it. Of course, automatic reporting, 24/7 visibility. Some of you managers might want to take a vacation but still hold your crews responsible for what they're doing so you can track what they're inspecting while you're on vacation using your mobile phone. You're going to know where your assets are, where they were last scanned, and then of course, tracking and reducing human error. So again, what company wouldn't want those types of benefits towards their assets, especially when you're so focused on safety, compliance, and some of your assets, are upwards of $20,000 worth of value. So real quick, let's touch on some of the benefits of RFID over a barcode or a serial number. Obviously, RFID travels at the speed of light, not much faster than that. That's about how fast my hot rod goes sometimes. You get multiple reads, so you can read multiple objects at one time, which is with a barcode scanner, you're going to have that line of sight, and you're only going to be able to scan one at a time. And then you can also write information to an RFID tag on the fly, which may benefit a lot of organizations, especially if they're working with confidential or sensitive information. And then you can, of course, lock that information down so it can never be changed. Now you go over to a barcode, a QR code, or a serial number. That stuff is subject to abrasion. One little nick in a barcode can ruin the barcode. You're only going to be able to read one at a time, line of sight. You're talking about decreasing productivity, slowing down how many assets you can inspect or identify or inventory. So of course there's a lot of benefit there. Some of the benefits of automation, again, are just increased inspection, the amount of assets you can inspect, compliance, and tracking your inventory, whether it's from the date you bring it in to consumption, or whether it's a rental application, so you're tracking it through the rental process, or it's in-house and you're just using it for inspection. Again, some of the challenges of radio frequency identification are metal and liquid, metal and water. So again, that's because of the electromagnetic properties of those. So we've came up with some high-tech and innovative ideas to protect the radio frequency chips and allow them to be used on a wide range of assets. We have our chips out in a lot of our product out in the Gulf of Mexico, off the coast of Brazil, and northern the oil fields in Alberta, Canada. Some of the other markets that we serve are fire protection, logistics, rail, marine, oil and gas, aerospace. The application, as Kelly mentioned, making sure the tag stays on is a big deal for us, and that's where most of our challenge comes from. An RFID tag that's laying on the dirt 20 feet away from the asset probably isn't going to help you. And if you paid a couple of dollars for it, then you're going to be pretty furious that that return on investment is no longer there. So the application methods that we deal with are weld, embed, we hang. We do a lot of band attachments. We do some adhesive and epoxy attachments when the application is fitting for it. A lot of the times our assets are outside. So again, the application method is extremely important, and that's where most of the challenges come from, similar to what Kelly had mentioned. We deal with a lot of extreme temperatures. Most of our tags are rated from -40 degrees Celsius up to upwards of 480 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 200 degrees Celsius, I believe. It's a really tough application, and that's because the antenna coil and the RFID chip expands and contracts, and once you get extreme temperatures, you'll actually break the solder point between the chips. So you got to be very concerned about that and make sure that the tag you choose is a good fit for the application. High impact, abrasion, chemical oil attachment challenges. Some of our tags go very deep down in the ocean, and then when they're brought up, they're expected to perform just like they did before. So there's a lot of applications, a lot of questions, and our discovery method when we get a new client in the door is really to make sure that they have the correct tag. We'll do engineering services, we'll send samples before you even have to make your initial purchase to make sure that you have the right product in your hand. We have a lot of products we offer. Again, we focus on customization. I'd really urge you to check out our website, www.holland1916.com/RFID. We have a lot of resources, white papers, ROI analysis, product listed, the frequency, the form factors that you're going to get with those products, the customization capability of those products. We also just at AWRF showcased a new synthetic tag that we can get down to about 38 cents for synthetic slings, which was a big challenge over the last few years because the cost of the sling itself, you don't want to put a $2 or $3 tag on. So these are just a couple of samples of our picture, and look out for some of our information being in AWRF's 2014 calendar that's going to be coming out towards the end of the year. And if you ever have any questions, you can always contact Holland and ask for me. You'll get me directly on the phone, or I'll call you back right away to answer any questions you have about radio frequency tags. Okay, so now that your asset, we talked about giving your asset a voice. What the software is going to do for you is it's going to translate that voice into something useful. And Darcie is going to speak in terms of Field ID's application. Darcie, why don't you go ahead and take it over?
Great. Well, I'd like to thank ITI for setting up this webinar today, and Holland for kind of educating everyone there on RFID technology. So I'm going to jump in just because it seems like we might be pressed for time. I'm going to have a quick PowerPoint, and then I'm just going to jump right into the application and then show you what the information looks like on the web. So Field ID, who are we? We're a software as a service company. We work with any sort of safety inspections or site audits. We've got upwards of almost 400 deployments globally now, over 3 million assets being tracked within Field ID, and on any given day, 15,000 plus organizations asking or accessing Field ID for various types of data and safety-related information. We've got plenty of customers. Obviously, one of our key ones, Cirque du Soleil, believe it or not, they actually use Field ID before every single one of their shows in Las Vegas to inspect all of their lifting and rigging gear. And this is just a quick snapshot of not all of, but definitely some of the uses that some of our customers today are using Field ID for. So that ranges anything from fall protection, lifting and rigging, cranes and hoists. Even employee training can be fully tracked within Field ID. And why Field ID? Well, benefits, reducing liability, costs, increasing efficiency, as well as increasing overall safety and creating a safety culture within your organization. And this is all done through the use of mobile devices. So Field ID is available on any sort of iOS or Apple device. So that could be your iPhone, iPad, iPad mini, even an iPod Touch, and any Android phone or tablet. So a lot of you will probably already have the hardware needed to operate Field ID. And this is a quick snapshot of Field ID on the tablet, but we'll move more into that when we take a look at the app. Field ID is cloud-based, so just like your email, where you can access it from anywhere in the world, Field ID works in the same way. So it makes it a very scalable solution. You can have it across multiple locations, just like Mike and Alex were touching on earlier in the demonstration, talking about the various locations that they track their equipment on, and they can do that from virtually anywhere in the world as long as they have a connection to the internet. And then just some customer success stories. So, some of our customers are reaching efficiency gains of 50%. That's very big, especially with any sort of lifting or rigging inspections, and we can touch on to that a little bit more later. So I'm going to pull the Field ID app on your screen there. So this is my Field ID login. And you'll notice as soon as I log into Field ID, it automatically starts updating. So everything here is completely automated for you. You don't have to push an upload button or anything like that. If there were any changes made in the system, if Mike Parnell decided he wanted to add a new piece of criteria to a fall arrest harness inspection, I would have that available on my iPad or my mobile device as soon as I log into the system. So what I'm going to do actually is show you how we can perform some inspections. I know lifting and rigging is definitely very big with especially this webinar today. So I'm going to show you how we can do multiple inspections at the same time. So when I'm clicking in this field here, I'm actually going to type in the word sling, but this is where you would essentially scan an RFID tag. And by scanning that RFID tag, it will automatically input that sling there for you. What's nice is you could do a visual inspection on 10 slings, and have all of them submitted at the exact same time. So just kind of imagine that right now I'm scanning RFID tags, not typing these in, and the RFID tags are automatically inputting themselves into the Field ID app. So now that I've added a few of the tags in here, I now have the option to start my inspection. I've already inspected all of these things and I know that they're all going to pass, so I can actually go ahead and save. And I've now done 3 sling inspections within a matter of seconds. Now the reports are automatically generated for me. The information is now available online. I can print off PDFs. I can email that information out. And that was all done in a matter of seconds. You know, one of my customers, an electric utility, they've now cut their sling inspections down from start to finish, which would have been upwards of over 3 days. They can now do all of their sling inspections in under a day, and that's including all of the Excel spreadsheets that they would have had to fill out and all of the paperwork that would have had to have been done during that process. Now I'm going to show you an actual inspection on Field ID, and you'll notice as soon as I start typing in harness, you know, if I'm scanning an RFID tag, it'll automatically bring me to the profile page, but I can also just simply use the search functionality here, and it works just like Google. It's always trying to predict or auto-populate what you're searching for. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up a Farris harness. And again, if I scan that RFID tag, and you can see there's an RFID number there available, I scan the RFID tag and it automatically pulls up this piece of equipment for me. I've got all of the information I could possibly want, who it belongs to, you know, what make and model it is. On the left-hand side, I can see the last time it was inspected, and I can actually see here the GPS location of where I was located when I performed that last inspection. The reason we incorporated that was because, you know, some of our customers were dealing with what we'd call pencil whipping in the industry, and, you know, having someone at home watching the football game on a Sunday, performing their inspections on a piece of paper isn't ideal. So now I can actually track within a matter of probably about 10 feet of where they actually were when they performed that inspection. Now, if I want to see a history, yes?
Darcie, this is Mike. So you can put in a photograph of the object or the asset that you're inspecting, and it's actual, not, well, condition, but it's a real photograph can be attached to this file, right?
Exactly. So you can have a photo of that actual asset available right there.
Thanks.
No problem. So if I click on the Events tab here, it'll actually show me the complete inspection history of this harness, and clearly it hasn't been doing very well as of late, but it's great because I now have access to this information immediately while I'm out in the field, and if I wanted to, I could even print off, or sorry, not print off, but pull up the PDF report of the past inspection and find out exactly why it may have failed that inspection. I can click on the Files tab here, and with Field ID, you can attach any sort of documentation you see fit. So maybe you need a diagram available, or you would like to have a diagram available for your inspectors out in the field. Maybe it's a certificate for this piece of equipment that would be helpful for any sort of governing bodies that need to see copies of that. Again, any sort of documentation you see would be helpful for yourself or the organization there. You can absolutely attach there. And then we have the Schedules tab, and you know, I think that's pretty self-explanatory, so I'm going to leave that alone for today. Now I'm going to go ahead and start an inspection. And for start an inspection, all I really have to do is click Start here, and then I'm just going to go ahead and choose the Harness Visual Inspection. So what it's going to have me do is confirm all of my information, you know, who this belongs to, who the inspector is today, and then to navigate through the app, I can either click on these sections on the left-hand side here, or since I'm using a tablet, I can actually just swipe across the screen, and just like that, I'm automatically brought to my first section, which is webbing. For the first piece of criteria, we have cuts, nicks, or tears. You know, Field ID's introduced this instruction button here, and we use this to supply more information to the inspector while they're out in the field so they can better inspect that piece of criteria. So if I go ahead and click on that, you know, I'm looking for cuts, nicks, or tears. This is actually going to show me a photo of exactly what I should be looking for this piece of criteria, which is very, very helpful. Now to change this pass to fail, I go ahead and click this once, and click that one more time, it's not applicable. Click it one more time and it's back to pass. So it's really just that easy. Click and go. So let's go ahead and say we want to fail this piece of criteria. To collect more data or information on that, we have this plus symbol on the right-hand side, and that's just going to allow me to have more options during this inspection. So I've got a red hand here for deficiencies. I've got a button for recommendations. I've got a camera for obvious reasons. And then I've got this orange arrow here, which we use for corrective actions. So let's go ahead and say we want to record a deficiency. I'm going to click on that red hand, and I now have predefined deficiencies available. So I don't even have to type anything if I want to record a deficiency. Based on this piece of equipment, I know for this criteria that it's very common that we're going to run into cuts, nicks, or tears. You'll also notice that I've thrown in an OSHA reference there. So I can go ahead and say that, well, we spotted some cuts, we spotted some tears, but I also want to include an OSHA reference for that as well in my report. So, that's really just going above and beyond what's expected of you for your safety programs. I can go ahead and click done, and just like that, I've now recorded my deficiencies. Now I'm going to go ahead and take a photo here. I'm going to pull up a harness, and you guys are going to get a shot of me here at the Field ID headquarters. Give that a sec to load up. So we're now taking a photo of the deficiency, and that will now be included in our report. Now finally we have corrective actions, and I want everyone to just kind of sit there for a second and think, how you currently handle corrective actions. Is it just filling out a piece of paper and handing it off to someone and hoping that it gets done? Have you ever had scenarios where corrective actions simply got overlooked or missed? These things happen on a common basis or a regular basis, unfortunately, with companies. So Field ID has given our customers the ability to really tie up that entire inspection process from start to finish when we do run into issues. So I'm going to go ahead and add a corrective action. We can set that priority there. I'm going to leave this one actually with critical. And then we can actually set a due date on when this corrective action is expected to be completed. So I'm going to set that for tomorrow. And then I'm going to assign this corrective action. Now, we can assign this to an entire team. So if you want to assign this to your entire maintenance team, you can absolutely do that. Or you can assign it to one individual person. I'm going to go ahead and assign that to myself and say that we need to repair and then just like that, I'm all set. So I've now recorded a deficiency, I've taken a photo of that deficiency, and I've now recorded a corrective action. And what Field ID is going to do now is send out an email notification to the person I've assigned this to, notifying them that A, there's a critical corrective action that needs to be done, B, it needs to be done by tomorrow, and C, here's the issue that we spotted with this corrective action. Again, these are simply things that you cannot do today with traditional pen and paper that Field ID enables you to do. Now going on to the second piece of criteria, I'm going to click on that instruction button one more time, and then we're going to see this time I've actually just incorporated an OSHA reference there. So I can now reference this when I'm inspecting this piece of criteria. So this doesn't necessarily have to be a photo. There are very many different uses that our customers today use that button for. And then for the third one, we can see step-by-step instructions on how they should inspect that specific piece of criteria. So you can start to see how valuable this piece of software is when you're doing these inspections, because you're giving so much more information to your inspectors than they've ever had before or could ever imagine having with traditional pen and paper checklists. So I think you kind of get the idea now of how the inspection works. We click that once, we change that to fail. If we want to move to the next section, we can go ahead and do that. And also keep in mind, Field ID works, the app works both online and offline. So if at any point during my inspection I lost connectivity to the Wi-Fi, which we know happens from time to time, or I lost connectivity to my cellular provider, no problem. You can continue on with your inspection as if nothing happened. And then as soon as you come into contact with that internet connection, Field ID will automatically sync that information for you. Now, if at any point, let's say an urgent matter came up and I need to stop what I'm doing, I can go ahead and save a draft here, go ahead and take care of that issue that needs taken care of, and then I can come back to my inspection and pick up right where I left off. Now we're going to go to the final section here, hardware. I'm going to click a few more here, and then I'm going to go ahead and click Save. And just like that, I've now completed an inspection. I've recorded my deficiencies, I've taken photos of those deficiencies, and I've actually recorded corrective actions. I didn't need to fill out any checklists. I didn't need to look at my paperwork and figure out what I even wrote down with my chicken scratch. I don't need to send out any emails, fill out any Excel spreadsheets. Everything is taken care of now with Field ID. So I'm going to leave that for the app portion, and now I'm going to jump to the online or the web portion of Field ID where we can take a look at the reports and the information associated with all of our equipment. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. And as soon as I log in, I'm brought to the Field ID dashboard. On the left-hand side here, I have my work calendar. So this is just showing me work that's been assigned to me. It's showing me that I have a sling that's due to check it or due back that needs to be checked into the tool crib, a corrective action that has been assigned to myself, as well as various other events that have been assigned to myself. On the top right-hand corner here, we have the Event KPIs widget, otherwise known as Key Performance Indicators. Now, I want everyone again to think, if I asked you to pull up a report of every single failed inspection for the past year, how long would it take you to do that? How many filing cabinets would you have to look through? How many emails or Excel spreadsheets would you have to go through to generate that report? I can see here for, a job site or even a customer like Caterpillar, for this year we have 225 inspections due. We've completed 55, and of those 55, 21 have failed. I click that 21 failed, and Field ID automatically generates a report for me of every single failed inspection for that job site, for that location, or for that customer. What I can also do now is select the box in the top left-hand corner, and I can now export all of this data to Excel, or I can even send this out as an email. So again, this was done in a matter of seconds, and this is just something you cannot do today with traditional pen and paper. Now the same works for open actions by priority. So these would be all of our corrective actions. This is definitely a very important widget because what's this telling me is when I hold my mouse over here, I have within my organization 41 critical actions that are overdue, which for most companies would be unacceptable. What's great about this is I click on that once, and again, I'm now brought to a page of every single overdue critical corrective action. So I can follow up on each one of these pieces of equipment and find out who the corrective action was assigned to, why it hasn't been completed, and assign it to someone else if need be. Maybe I assigned it to Mike Parnell, and he was actually on vacation tomorrow, or maybe he called in sick. Whatever the reason is, it doesn't really matter. What matters to me is I can find out why it hasn't been completed, and I can reassign that maybe to Alex or even to Zach and make sure that that corrective action or repair gets handled. Now, Field ID updates its software every 6 weeks, so this isn't something that gets purchased and it gets dated. So we always add in new widgets, new features, new functionality. One of the newest features we've added in more recently is a full lockout tagout module. And what we've also added in is multiple dashboards. So we can see here, if I want, I can actually have my dashboard set up just for my weekly inspections. Or maybe I want a dashboard that just shows me my inspections on a monthly basis. So you can really start to dig down and get into some of the nitty-gritty data as far as safety is concerned with Field ID. Now, if I want to print off of this, I can also click the print button, and I can have a nice hard copy of all of the graphs and charts associated with this organization or job site. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull up the Farris harness that we inspected. And again here we can see that this actual harness is due to be checked into the tool crib today. We also have a corrective action that has been assigned to myself, and we can also see here that it failed its last inspection. We still have all of the same information we would have on the tablet, where it was, where we were located when we performed that inspection, any comments or any warnings, again, any sort of attachments or documentation that we want available for ourselves to view. And then I'm going to go ahead now and pull up the PDF report, again, that gets automatically generated for me through Field ID. So again, these aren't things that you have to build yourself now. These get generated for you straight through the Field ID app. So I'm going to try and scroll slowly here. But again, see, we can view that clear deficiency there. We've got a photo included in the report. Everything is clear, easy to read. And then all of the different sections are also broken down through the app. On the final page, we have a deficiencies and recommendation report. So our customers prefer to have all of their deficiencies, or most of them, at least put together on a report on a final page. You know, some of the inspections or audits that you perform could be 10, 20, 30 pages long. So sometimes it's very convenient to have a reference like this on the final page as opposed to just flipping through every single page there for your inspections. I'm also going to show you here in just a second, and give me a second to pull up the email that gets generated from the corrective action. Now, if you want, Zach, you could open this up to maybe a couple of questions while I'm pulling up this email for everyone.
Yeah, that'd be great. We have a couple questions for Holland going back to the tagging. So Sanders, the question was around the barcode tags, I think, that were seen in the ITI photos. Do you guys provide barcode tags, and when would those be appropriate over a different type of tag?
So it's really entirely up to you what you decide to choose for the tags, and especially with lifting and rigging, the RFID tags are a great fit just because of how durable the tags are and the type of workflows that they have to go through. Right, these things are getting dropped; they could potentially get stepped on. Very intense work conditions sometimes. So the RFID tags are a great fit for that because it doesn't matter if it's submerged underwater or if it's enduring high temperatures of heat. Now for barcodes, anytime where an RFID tag wouldn't work or wouldn't be an ideal solution, that's when you can start looking at using barcodes. And like you had shown in some of the presentations, or shown in the presentation earlier, Mike and Alex, they were using that barcode functionality for some of the operating equipment that they're using.
And real quick, Darcie, let me just add another point there. It might be useful to use barcodes in some situations. In any industrial environment or outside environment, a barcode is generally going to be made of a paper or synthetic material. Here at Holland, not only do we have the ability to print human-readable information on our metal tags, we can also print barcodes and 2D barcodes and etch those into the metal as well. So if you prefer a barcode method, those also come in a very durable format as well. So of course, in terms of RFID tags, I would say that you never want to use a barcode over an RFID tag, but of course that's primarily because I'm in the RFID tag business. There may be special occasions where a barcode might be a good fit, and the first one that would jump to mind is feasibility and cost point. But other than that, RFID is going to have a lot more benefits over generic barcode.
Sure. And Darcie, go ahead and touch on your email. I have a couple more questions for you guys, though.
Absolutely. So as you can see here, this is the email that was generated from that corrective action. So I've now been assigned this work. I can see that it's a fall arrest harness. It's a critical corrective action, and it needs to be repaired for some tears. And then I even have a photo of that issue. So again, access to this information instantaneously, things you just can't do with today's traditional methods. We have this technology available today. We might as well use it.
Awesome. Question for both of you guys, and maybe we can start with the tagging side, but what's the process look like for a new customer to get onboarded, meaning they have all this inventory, no tags? What's the onboarding process look like for both the Holland side and the Field ID side?
Well, I'll go ahead and start. A lot of the times we work with companies that have assets already deployed out in the field. So it really is as simple as walking up with your mobile device or scanner, scanning that tag, and then using a software program, your existing database of inventory, to associate that RFID tag to a serial number or some sort of asset identification number that's already existing in your system. So simply you walk up to an existing asset that you have, scan the tag, type in the serial number that is associated with it in your existing database, and therefore it automatically will put that tag associated with that item. You permanently attach it so that any time you walk up to the asset and scan it, it's going to bring up that information that has already been developed and input into your existing database. And then, of course, new items would be attached either at the manufacturer's point or at the end user's point, depending on which one is utilizing the RFID program.
Great, and then with Field ID, we can actually import, so if you've got all of your assets on Excel spreadsheets or CSV files, we can actually dump that into Field ID so you don't have to manually put them in one by one, and then when you are inspecting it out in the field, have kind of almost a bag of RFID tags with you. You can pull a tag out, add that piece of equipment into Field ID, and then associate the tag there with it. As far as the training and onboarding with Field ID, all of our customers go through Field ID Quick Start, which is a series of training sessions with your own individual success manager. We typically break that up over a period of 4 weeks. So once a week, you'll log on, do a webinar just like this one with your Field ID success manager, and they'll essentially tailor the system to your specific needs. Give you a little bit of homework for that week. You can go out, do some inspections, perform some audits, add some equipment, come back the following week, and they'll review what you've done and make any corrections if needed, as well as answer any questions. And that'll go on over a period of 4 weeks. As far as support, it's unlimited support. So at any point in time, if you have any questions or need any additional information relating to Field ID, please, you can feel free to call into support. That's exactly what your subscription is paying for.
Okay, awesome. Well, speaking of subscriptions, really quick, Darcie, with the software service model, do existing customers, the question came through, do they get product enhancements automatically, when they're released, or how does that all work?
Yes, they do. So any new updates with Field ID, you simply get for being a Field ID customer. Now, the new lockout tagout was a new module added on, so that you would have to purchase, but it is available there. We were recently acquired by MasterLock as of January, and their main initiative to get started with Field ID was to release a lockout tagout module that you could tie in obviously with Field ID so that you could go out through your procedures, scan a barcode or even a tag on some of the locks that you have there and go through your procedures step by step. And it's almost dummy proof, if you will. Field ID will not allow you to move from one procedure to the other if it's not set up the way that you're supposed to.
Okay, terrific. And what, if any, new features are on the roadmap?
For this year, our next major upgrade will be reporting and trending and analysis. So what we have here is the dashboards that everyone just absolutely loves at this point, but we want to start digging down to even deeper levels as far as safety data. So for something like by the end of this year, we'd like to be able to search. I want to know how many fall arrest harnesses failed because there were tears in the straps. Well, Field ID by the end of this year will be able to generate reports related to that.
Excellent. That sounds like a very cool feature. I'm sure Alex is just bubbling over up there, so that's neat. Very cool. A question came in regarding Sanders. What's the ballpark cost of just a tag in general? You mentioned $2, so both like an RFID tag versus a barcode.
Right. So the tag price is primarily going to be determined by the amount of material that's used to make the tag, so form factor. If it's going to be a synthetic material or plastic, you can generally be in the range from as low as 25 cents up to $1.50 or $2. If you're going to use some sort of stainless steel or aluminum, you can be up to $5 a piece. And also, if you're going to want a specific attachment method, such as a band with it, or an epoxy, or a cable tie, then you're going to also look at some increased costs. So I would say, depending on the application, depending on the durability, depending on the form factor, anywhere from $1/4 up to $10 a tag if you want extreme performance, extreme temperature rating, with maximum durability. I would say that the average cost of tags sold at Holland is around $2.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for that plain information. That's great to know. It's hard to, I know there's a lot of factors that probably go into it for pricing, but that's good information. I have 3 more questions here, guys, and just so everyone knows, if you have any other questions, feel free to type them in, but we're just about out of time. But Darcie, does Field ID work on Microsoft Windows-powered tablets?
As of right now, no, it doesn't. So this year, our two major upgrades would have been the new lockout tagout module, as well as reporting and trending. I would say that would be on the roadmap for 2014 as those become more and more adopted by the industry. But as of right now, no, that Field ID does not operate on the Windows tablets.
Okay. Another good question, probably for both of you guys. For a lot of the end users, I mean, like I mentioned, there's folks from Siemens and BP and Alstom Power here. Can they open up their Field ID instance or their application to their rigging providers to log inspections and maintenance records, or how does that all work?
Yes, so Field ID has the concept of what we call reporting users. So if you have subcontractors that you work with, or even just people within the organization at corporate or other managers that want to have access to that data, you can assign them a reporting user. So what that will allow them to do is have a Field ID login, and then they can view and print reports. Now, they wouldn't be able to make any changes to the system. They can simply view that information, and the Field ID administrator could even restrict what they can and cannot view. So if you want certain customers to only view inspections relating to them, or certain individuals like managers looking at inspections relating to their area, you can absolutely segregate the information that way.
Terrific. Well, Sanders, I'll ask, there's one more question I'll give to you, and then we'll wrap up here. But can you confirm the maximum distance of the reach and capabilities of the tags for RFID, I'm assuming?
Yeah, so that's another question similar to pricing. There's a lot of factors that go into that. Most of the tags that we've been discussing today for inspection purposes will only operate up to a maximum of a few feet. But Holland does offer tags that can reach up to 100 feet in a 360-degree orientation. So that's actually a pretty big feat. So the simple answer is anywhere from touch to 100 feet. But there's a lot of different things, such as the reader. The reader characteristics and frequency is going to go into that. Again, the form factor of the tag and antenna, and which chip is used within it. So that's the quick and dirty answer: 0 to 100 feet.
Okay, excellent.
And I have a real quick video, Zach. If I could I get access? I'd love to just show everyone this video of one of our tags out in the field being scanned, sitting next to a generic nameplate.
Sure.
Okay, so hopefully everyone can see our screen real quick, and I hope this isn't choppy. You can see this is a wire rope sling, and it's going to get an inspection really quick. And you can see that there's a generic name tag on it, and it's just absolutely destroyed. There's no human readable information anymore, which generally means this would have to immediately go back for inspection according to ASME standards. But however, it's affixed with an RFID chip, our high-frequency data drop, one of our most common products, and there's an RFID reader, which is going to read the tag. And now he's got a tablet in his hand. He looks at the information. It identifies it right away. He can do his inspection and still carry on because the standard says it has to have an identification tag, not that it specifically has to be human readable. So just another quick little demo there.
Very interesting. Those guys, ASME, sure know how to keep up with technology. You know, it doesn't have to be human readable. That's nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a shout out to the ASME volunteers and also to your guys' team there. It's an awesome technology that is totally usable. Jonah and I were meeting with actually at our rigging gear inspection class, and I'll basically end with this, everybody. But we were meeting with a gentleman who kind of oversees big construction companies' warehouse, of all their equipment, and he, I believe he said he manages everything half in paper, half in Excel, and he, to his credit, I think he's able. I mean, he has all these other duties, running everything from running the forklift, getting product and equipment out the door to other project sites, and he's probably managing about $10,000 to $20,000 worth of, 10 to 20,000 units or pieces of equipment in a single warehouse, which probably isn't even that much. But to do it by paper and Excel can get pretty incredibly difficult. And it's just not logic. It doesn't contain any logic like the Field ID system does. And it's not streamlined with RFID tags. So With that, everyone, I just appreciate you joining in today, and thank you very much to Holland and Field ID with Darcie and Sanders and Kelly. We really appreciate your guys' time. And just to point out, too, that future webinars, again, feel free to register for them, but this webinar, the presentation and the recording, will all be on our website up shortly, so you'll be able to access that, and I'm sure you'll actually probably be able to retrieve them from any one of us if you ask. But if you have any questions, feel free to email anyone at ITI or Sanders and Kelly or Darcie. But we really appreciate it, guys, and thank you very much for joining.
Thank you, Zach.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great day, everybody, and we'll talk to you later.